Well, good evening and welcome to the COVID-19 pandemic update. I'm Kayode Okikulu. First, the highlights. Well, experts point out the connection between COVID-19 and the environment, as well as lessons learned during the lockdowns. The World Health Organization risk communication officers in Yobe State attribute increase in cases to neglect of COVID protocols. And Pakistan rolls out local production of single-dose Chinese CanSinoBio COVID-19 vaccine with the capacity to deliver 3 million doses a month. I'll begin with our breaking news. The federal government has suspended indefinitely the operations of the microblogging and social networking service Twitter in Nigeria. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, announced the suspension in a statement issued in Abuja just moments ago, citing the persistent use of the platform for activities that are capable of undermining Nigeria's corporate existence. The minister said the federal government has also directed the National Broadcasting Commission to immediately commence the process of licensing all OTT and social media operations in Nigeria. Well, this is a development story, and we'll bring you more details and updates as soon as they come in. Well, for 2 consecutive days now, the NCDC has reported double-figure fatalities across the country. 28 the day before, and now 18 deaths recorded. You know, there was a time we didn't record deaths for days. We may have taken it for granted, and now that seems to be changing these days. Is this the beginning of a third wave? What do we make of the latest infection rates as well? Well, we'll get answers to that on the program today. But first, let's take a closer look at the figures and perhaps the backstory.
Nigeria has recorded 122 new infections in the last 24 hours, much higher than the 25 recorded a day earlier. According to an update by the NCDC, Lagos had the highest figures with 105 cases. Imo and Kaduna states recorded 4 each, Akwa Ibom had 3, the FCT 2, and Delta, Rivers, Oyo, and Ekiti had 1 case each. The agency says figures include data backlogs from ongoing data harmonization in Lagos, Delta, and Benue states. The latest tally raises the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria to 166,682. 2,575 persons were discharged after treatment and tests with negative results, raising the number of recoveries to 162,521. However, these include a backlog of community recoveries from some states. 18 deaths raised the tally of casualties to 2,117. According to the latest publication by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, over 1.9 million eligible Nigerians have been vaccinated with the first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, while over 148,000 of that number have received a second dose. In the latest update by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Lagos State is taking the lead in the second phase of the vaccination exercise after vaccinating over 27,000 of its eligible population, followed by Benue and Kano states. Globally, more than 172 million people have caught the virus, while more than 3.7 million COVID-19 related deaths have been reported.
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic did not come with the negatives alone. Interestingly, there were also some good sides to the virus. Well, yes, you heard right, and I can explain. You see, with people being confined indoors, the environment and Mother Earth, as it is called, seems to have breathed some fresh air, literally, as a result of the absence of human activities and the lockdown. So in the build-up to tomorrow's World Environment Day, to mark the importance of nature and the environment, the United Nations is asking that nature should not be taken for granted and must be respected for its values. Well, this year's theme is ecosystem restoration, which can take many forms like growing trees, greening cities, rewilding gardens, changing diets, or cleaning up rivers and coasts, and perhaps staying indoors. Moving on, the World Health Organization has cautioned Yobe residents not to abandon the NCDC safety protocols against COVID-19, noting that the records of daily cases are an indication of ongoing community transmission. Dr. Richard Lako, WHO Emergency Manager, Northeast Nigeria, who was represented by Public Health Officer Dr. Ibrahim Salisu, disclosed this in Damaturu during risk communication awareness in some local government councils in the state.
It's about 400 days since Yobe State recorded its index case of the novel coronavirus. Since then, several committees, humanitarian organizations, and traditional rulers had undertaken sensitizations in public places so as to reduce the spread of the disease. Safety equipment in offices, schools, financial institutions, and worship centers attest to the efforts institutions have used in tackling the problem. But over time, safety measures such as hand washing and wearing of face masks are gradually diminishing. Most of the items are either absent or no longer put to use. The situation is prompting the Yobe State government and the World Health Organization to engage more risk communication officers in Unguru and for the SCUM local government councils to create more awareness.
The State Ministry of Health, with support from WHO and NCDC, has significantly ramped up sample collection and testing across the state. So we continue to see new confirmed cases of COVID-19, which is indicating an ongoing community transmission. We concluded the training of 60 healthcare workers on COVID-19 home-based care and infection prevention and control.
No doubt, many have died since the outbreak of the disease, but these residents explain why people are no longer observing the safety protocols.
Just for them to just be careful. If you can know how to take care of yourself, I think there's no need of wearing of face masks.
I say that because up to now, if you are interviewing or discussing with some other people, you'll find out that they do not even believe that the virus exists.
Yobe State recorded 15 new confirmed cases of the disease. On June the 3rd, 2021, it now has 444 confirmed cases and 9 deaths, while only 41 on admission across the state.
Well, let's talk vaccination. With the current vaccination drive, the most we can vaccinate with the doses we have in Nigeria as at now is just about 1% of our population. I mean, it's way better than nothing. And when you compare 1%, which is 2 million, to other African countries, Nigeria is not doing badly. But this is far from the 70% target, which was set by the Presidential Steering Committee. At that point, it was the Presidential Task Force, the time frame for which is between 2021 and 2023. Now, one big stumbling block is the uncertainty of vaccine supply as a result of global shortage. The Minister of Health, Dr. Asage Hanire, has said that Nigeria is looking to get vaccine donations from the COVAX facility and other countries who no longer have need for their Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in August at the earliest. But for local production of the COVID-19 vaccine, the minister says it is not feasible just yet. That's owing to the high cost of conducting trials, which run into millions of dollars. So what is the game plan, really? I mean, once these vaccines are exhausted, what next? Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed is the head technical secretariat of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, and he joins us virtually on the program this evening. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for your time. I imagine that vaccine procurement is also one of the biggest concerns of the Steering Committee today. Would you say we have cracked that case just yet?
Thank you, and good evening, viewers. Certainly, yes, that is really an important issue, and as you rightly mentioned, it is really a source of concern. For now, we have promises, we have been monitoring what is going on globally, and we are trying to see how much vaccine we can leverage from the COVAX and also the African Union vaccine. However, in addition to this, we're also holding bilateral talks with the different countries As you rightly mentioned, quoted the Minister of Health, we are discussing with countries that may have excess of the vaccines that they actually need. And to see how we can get those vaccines. But we're also talking bilaterally with other countries to see how they can help us to secure a deal with the manufacturing companies so that we can come up earlier, to be able to have vaccines that we can procure either directly as a country or to buy through, other mechanisms that are available. So that is it for now. Still, our fingers are crossed, but the discussions are still going on.
It's interesting you mention procurement. Now, renowned professor of virology, Professor Tomori, is blaming this uncertainty on lack of early preparedness. He's also asking that the federal government summon courage and go out there to purchase these vaccines. Would you agree with him on that one?
Sorry, can you come again? Can you come again what you mentioned?
Well, I was referencing Professor Tomori's comments regarding the uncertainty, and he blamed this on lack of early preparedness. So he's asking the federal government to summon courage and go out there to purchase these vaccines. I wonder if you agree with his assessment of how we got here.
Well, so it is not really, this is not an issue of planning or getting your money. Even if you have the funds, the vaccine is just not available. We have reached a stage, in this pandemic where we have seen this huge global vaccine nationalism that has risen. We've seen countries amassing vaccines 2 or 3 times more than their needs. It is just a frenzy that some countries, particularly the developed countries, went into because of the fear of unknown. So other countries, even if you have the funds, to procure these vaccines, it is just not available. So I will not agree that it is the procurement effort or the lack of planning, because these discussions have been on for a long time. Funds have been mobilized, by the Gavi and COVAX and others, and agreement has been reached with these manufacturing facilities. We know if not for what has happened, by now we would have received close to 30 million doses of additional Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. But because of what has happened globally and because of this huge demand in countries, they are making the companies to remit. So I don't agree that it's really an issue of money. It is now far beyond that, and that is why we are exploring vaccine diplomacy to be able to negotiate with the countries and to negotiate with the manufacturers so that we can have our own fair share of this commodity.
Clearly he believes that, we might stand a better chance if we just go out there and approach these manufacturers, as you mentioned. But regarding purchase and funds, I know that has been a major issue. Just how much are we putting into purchasing vaccines?
So the first and foremost, is to be able to secure the deal, to know how much vaccines you will be able to get at the prices. We have negotiated the price and we continue to negotiate the prices of the vaccines. We have a target of the number of vaccines, the quantity that we would like to have available in the country. And like I mentioned, we have various mechanisms that we hope to use to get these vaccines available. One thing that is important very early in our plan is we do not want to procure vaccines or to obtain vaccines and then they expire on us. We have not used them. And therefore, we are looking at doses that can be easily mopped up, that can be utilized in the country. We've seen other African countries that have received even though smaller proportion of the vaccines. What has happened? They are not able to utilize them on time. They have expired on them. Some have either donated to other countries that could use them, and some had to actually ban them outright. So we are very cautious. We do not want to go into that frenzy and acquire a large amount of vaccine, that may not be utilized. So we'll continue to monitor the situation. We have seen the uptake of the 2 million doses in the country. It has not been as fast as we had expected. Because this is the initial dose and we're just targeting the strategic leadership and the frontline health workers. That is something that we could have done in much earlier weeks. So, but it has been a little slow, and we really have to learn from that experience. We have actually one of the most efficient way of distributing these vaccines in Africa.
Well, Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed, thank you so much for that update, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, still on vaccination, let's head over to Delta State, where the government today commenced the second dose of COVID-19 vaccinations to top government functionaries taking their turns at the Executive Council chamber of a government house, Asaba. The governor is asking all Delta residents to take advantage of the opportunity to get complete doses. Again, he's assuring the people of the safety of the vaccine in order to reduce the transmission of the virus. When we return from this break, Lagos State is investigating reports of blood clots from vaccines, plus a look at what's happening in the EU. To join us again. You're welcome back. The Lagos State government says it is investigating reports of blood clots from the COVID-19 vaccine. In the meantime, however, the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akiambayomi, is insisting that the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine far outweigh the side effects. Is asking residents to get vaccinated because it is safe and offers them protection against the COVID-19 virus.
We are, however, investigating the possibility of linking 2 or 3 blood clot situations to the vaccine. And we are looking at that information. We're investigating it at LASUTH with our scientists to see if there is actually a link between the development of blood clots but there are very few of them, and it's very difficult to directly link receiving the vaccine to the development of a blood clot. It's not unique to Lagos or Nigeria. We've seen this across the world, in fact, in much higher numbers. And again, normal people will develop blood clots. There's nothing unusual about a population developing blood clots. The important thing is that the benefit that we derive from vaccinating far outweighs the risk of developing any of these adverse events. And we don't want to be in a position where we are caught napping and that a mutant virus comes into Lagos and starts to create a problem for us.
And outside the country, it's a big day in Germany as the country begins easing COVID-19 restrictions. Gyms are open. People can now eat outside restaurants, and they don't even need a test to eat outside those restaurants. I mean, talk about a perfect time to use the expression, thank God it's Friday. And it even gets better from next week when schools will be back full-time. On the other hand, Germany has introduced the vaccine certificate system ahead of an EU-wide rollout on July the 1st. Well, let's speak with DW correspondent Clifford Cunan for more on this. He joins us from Berlin. Well, Clifford, it seems like Germany is opening up at last. But first, can you tell us about this EU vaccination system? How does it work?
So Europe is finally opening up. Greece, Germany, Bulgaria, Czechia, Denmark, Croatia and Poland have started issuing EU digital COVID certificates for travel within the bloc. It's a key part of the government's efforts to get tourism back on track. The vaccination certificate will be rolled out across the 27-nation bloc on July 1st. It's a commonly recognised certificate that uses a QR code with advanced security features. They'll come in both digital and paper forms, they'll be free of charge and distributed in the national language plus English, and they'll be valid all over the EU. The certificates are being issued to people who are fully vaccinated, as well as those who've already contracted the virus and developed antibodies, and others who've had a PCR test within the last 72 hours. The plan was first proposed in March, and one of the models for the system is Denmark, which has had a hugely successful coronavirus passport system for about a month now, granting its own inhabitants a passport to socialise with proof of being free of the virus.
So can you tell us, as Europe slowly opens up, which industries will benefit most from this?
Like everywhere else in the world, the tourism industry in Europe has been devastated by the pandemic, And one of the big drivers behind the plan is Greece, which depends heavily on tourism. Now, that country's digital governance minister, Kyriakos Pierakakis, said easier travel will open up within the EU as nations adopt the new verification standard. A lot of tourists coming to Europe come from outside the bloc, and the EU digital COVID-19 certificate for travel can be open to non-EU international travellers once individual member states accept proof of vaccination, a negative test result, or recovery from COVID infection. It's interesting too that the countries will be allowed to add extra vaccines to their individual entry list, including those that have not been formally approved for use across the European Union. Now, here in Germany this week, Chancellor Angela Merkel's cabinet approved a huge change that will allow non-vaccinated people to end their quarantine early if they test negative. The measures are designed to make summer travel easier, particularly for families when parents are vaccinated and children aren't, as vaccines haven't yet been approved for children.
So, finally, can you tell us what are the latest steps in Germany to relax COVID restrictions?
The numbers are well down in Germany, so the government is opening up earlier than expected. The lockdown here was originally supposed to run until the end of June. So restaurants across the country were told to close down back at the beginning of November last year, so say more than 6 months ago. So it was supposed to just last 4 weeks. Restaurants have been opening up slowly in recent weeks. You've been able to eat outside once you have a negative test or proof of vaccination. But as of from today, that's being expanded, so you can eat outdoors with no test and indoors with a test. And the gyms are opening again with various restrictions after, again, 6 months, which is good news for those of us who put on a pound or two during the lockdown. Next week, schools are opening up again fully. For the past few weeks, they've been 1 day on campus, 1 day homeschooling, but that's changed now. So overall, the picture is a positive one after months of lockdown.
Well, let's hope it stays positive, Clifford. Thank you for that update. Well, this sounded extremely risky at some point, but it may not be anymore, as some countries around the world are now looking at the possibility of immunizing people with 2 different vaccines. You have countries such as Russia, the US, and South Korea planning or running trials looking at its efficacy. The US firm Novavax also says it will take part in a mix and match trial in the UK this month, which will test the use of an additional booster dose from another producer.
Pakistan has rolled out local production of single-dose Chinese CanSino Bio COVID-19 vaccine with a capacity to deliver 3 million doses a month. An initial batch of 118,000 doses of the vaccine is ready to be delivered to the government today. After the plan was inaugurated at the National Institute of Health, Pakistan signed a deal with CanSino Bio late March to import the concentrate in bulk to process and package the vaccine locally with PackVac branding. And in Jordan, COVID-19 survivor Abdullah Bashiti is still suffering disturbing flashbacks from his time in intensive care. The 38-year-old father recalls the hallucinations and delirium from images of doomsday to a nightmare of a war zone that beset him as he struggled for life during 37 days in the ICU ward of a private hospital in Amman. After he regained consciousness one day, 5 doctors were at his bedside saying, "Abdullah, say amen. Abdullah, say dear God." Abdullah said he felt like he was fighting for his life. Authorities in Australia's Victoria state say they have detected the highly infectious Delta COVID-19 virus variant for the first time in the latest outbreak in Melbourne, stoking concerns of a major spike in cases.
So sequencing has come through on 2 of our original West Melbourne cases overnight, and that sequencing has identified a new variant that is unrelated to all of the other cases in our cluster thus far in Melbourne. That variant is the Delta variant, so it's the B1617.2 variant that is now infamous in India and increasingly in the United Kingdom. It is a variant of significant concern.
Finally, lawyers for the European Union and AstraZeneca today attended court in Brussels in the legal case between the two over COVID-19 vaccine supplies, with a decision expected in the case within a month. The hearing is expected to be the last one before the ruling over whether AstraZeneca should be forced to deliver more doses by the end of June. A parallel case will continue beyond the summer.
And just one more thing. Don't forget to protect yourself. The virus is still out there, so continue to take responsibility. And visit our website, channelstv.com, for more updates and a better understanding of the pandemic. We also have the breaking news, big stories from business to politics, sports, and so much more, all at your fingertips. Well, that's the COVID-19 update for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikule.